If you want to take your music to the next level, then you have to have awesome sound. In this video, I'm going to give you the tools and the knowledge that you need to start developing a world-class sound in your music. Let's jump into the video. Hey everyone, Rex here from the Maze Music Academy, where I help musicians just like you level up your music making so you can succeed in your music career. Welcome to part 2 of my series on the 5 essential elements of music, where we're going to talk about the first element, which is sound. If you missed the intro video, I recommend that you hit pause, go back and check that one out first, and you can find that link in the description below. So you might be thinking, duh, all music has sound, of course. Why is that so essential for me to learn as an element of music? Now, actually, I found that a lot of musicians, especially beginners, actually take the sound of their music for granted. They put a lot of time in the other elements, the harmonies and the melodies and the rhythm and the form, but then they don't really stop and put that same effort into the sound. So a lot of that comes from just a lack of understanding of what that really means in music, and then being able to develop the skills necessary to improve that in your own music. So admittedly, sound is a pretty broad term, so I like to break it down into 2 pieces to help make it easier to explain, and those 2 components are timbre and texture. So let's start with timbre, and that's a term you might not have heard before, but that's why I always like to keep a good pocket music dictionary handy. This is one that I've used for a lot of years. I'll link it down in the description below. But the simplest definition that I've seen for timbre is tone color or quality. So what does tone color actually mean? So timbre is to music what the colors are in painting, and that's where that term comes from. So if you've ever watched Bob Ross or any other kind of painting show like that, you see the painter picks all their colors on their palette, kind of a bunch of primary, secondary, common colors, and then they start taking those colors and they mix them together into different combinations to create brand new colors that are unique. And those colors then set the mood in their painting, so it has either a sort of a warm or a cool feel or a happy or a sad feel. It really helps them kind of convey a message in their painting. So timbre is essentially the specific instruments that you're using in your piece of music, and that can include your voice or voices. That can include both acoustic and electronic instruments, and even things that we sometimes consider as noise. It's still the sound. So tone color, when we're talking about tone color in the context of music, we're talking about the warmness or the coolness, or whether it sounds hollow or full, or maybe whether it's soothing or grating. All these different ways to talk about the tone color or the timbre of music. Timbre is the reason that every instrument in the orchestra sounds a little bit different, why your voice sounds different from my voice, why a sawtooth wave sounds different from a square wave or a triangle wave, even if we're playing and singing the exact same pitch at the exact same volume. Without getting too technical, timbre is actually the balance of all the frequencies that make up a sound. And that might sound kind of weird because you play a note on your instrument or you sing a tone on with your voice, and you're thinking, I'm just singing a middle C, I'm singing an A, an E, whatever. But actually, when you sing that note, there's a whole bunch of higher frequencies that color that sound that are called overtones, which help shape that specific sound, and why your voice sounds different from a saxophone, sounds different from a synthesizer. It's all that whole range of overtones coming together. So when you think about acoustic instruments, the size and what those instruments are made out of and how they're played are what determine the sound, whether it's a brass instrument or an instrument played on the reed that's made out of wood. Your voice has a lot of flexibility with the way you control the sound with your breathing in your mouth and how you project that sound. And then especially with synthesizers, you have pretty much unlimited control over shaping that tone color using filters and the different waveforms and all those different cool components of a synthesizer. So that's timbre. Now the second key component of sound is texture. And using the same analogy with the painting that we talked about earlier, if timbre are the individual colors that you're using in your palette, then texture is how you take those colors and you layer them onto the canvas. So in music, when we talk about texture, we're really talking about orchestration and arranging, and to some extent the mixing in a studio type environment. So for example, let's say you're composing a film score for full orchestra, which gives you dozens of different individual timbres from the different instruments in that orchestra that you can arrange in different fashions and different textures to create different moods and create different themes throughout the piece. So the same exact thing applies when you're working with electronic instruments and mixing together synthesizers and effects processors and things like that. So when you think of styles like metal or dubstep, they have a lot of those heavy, gritty sounds that are actually formed by layering a lot of different sounds together, which give it that heavy, grungy kind of sound. So when you really start to pay attention to the timbres and the textures in the music that you're listening to, you really start to realize how big an impact it has on the identity of that music. It's just like on YouTube when you watch cover videos of metal songs played by a bluegrass band. It's the same exact music, but it sounds completely different. When you go to an orchestra concert and they're playing pop music, it's a lot different than when you hear the actual pop singer singing the song. So that's really what we're talking about here. It's just like the painter. If I paint in the vibrant colors of all the rainbow versus more natural sepia-like tones or black and white, I can paint the same exact landscape, the same exact scene, but it'll look completely different. So now that you understand timbre and texture, the real important thing is to start applying it to your critical listening. Because as you listen to the music that you like and you want to imitate, you're going to start taking bits and pieces. What instrument did they use? What combinations did they use in their orchestration or in that song or whatever? And you want to pull that into your music to create a unique identity in your artistry, in your musicianship, whether it be for composing or performing. So that's all you really need to know about sound to really start taking your music to the next level. You start listening for these colors and these textures, these timbres, and you start applying them to your music. You're just going to keep getting better and better and sharpening your sound more and more and more. Now, before we jump into the next element, I want to know what your favorite sounds are. So what timbres and textures do you like to listen for in the music that you like? How do you like to use timbre and texture in the music that you're composing? Tell me about it in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you're getting value out of this series, smash that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. I'll see you in the next video where we're going to talk about the second essential element of music, harmony.